now we'd like to talk about undergraduate activities. The Haury Program funds about $40,000 per year to undergraduate activities, and we've chosen to partner with the Green Fund of the Office of Student Affairs and with the Office of Student Engagement to support their ongoing programs to enrich and expand the undergraduate experience and education at the University of Arizona. By investing in these existing programs, the Haury Program focuses on what is underway at the U of A in social justice and environment in the larger society, and expands the university's role as a land-grant institution. Undergraduate Mely Bohlman is a member of the Green Fund board, and she's a recipient of the Green Fund grant, and she's going to tell us about her experiences on both sides of that. And Erin Deely is the director of the Office of Recruitment and Engagement for the College of Science, STEM Cats program, which is funded by the Haury Program through the Office of Student Engagement. That's one of the many outreach efforts of the College of Science. Last spring they had a cohort of 11 STEM Cats, and this year they have 13 students earning 100% engagement credit. Marley Murrell is one of those dedicated STEM Cats, so I'll let the three of them talk to you about their experiences.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Mely Bohlman. I'm currently a senior here at the university studying environmental science and Spanish and Portuguese. And since last fall, I've been a garden intern for Davis Bilingual Elementary, which is a magnet school right over at I-10 on the east side. This is through the U of A's Community and School Garden Workshop class offered by the School of Geography, and it's the perfect place for me because I love interacting in the garden space and utilizing Spanish to these incredible children. And I was very fortunate this spring to apply for a mini grant and receive it, and I asked in this mini grant for some improvements that could have been done for the education space. So we're working with chicken coop and a vermiculture station, so worms, and some we wanted to put in some new benches and those kinds of things that really make the space a more interactive and enjoyable space for these children to learn about real world, real context problems outside in a garden setting. I saw the value in asking for that in my grant, and I was very fortunate to receive it. And since Davis has had a long-standing relationship with the university because they've been working together, sending interns like myself for about 7 years now. That's really important to maintain for the school community garden workshop class. Also, Davis kind of represents one of the outreach points for U of A. So by sending these students every semester, we're engaging with children, we're working outside, and we're putting what we learn in class into good use. So that's sort of the context of my grant when I applied, and I was really excited to receive it and put it into place. And when these children came back after this, so it was during the spring I put it in, and during this fall semester they were able to, see the new space, and they were really excited to continue learning with all these awesome lessons that we have planned for them. And so that inspired me to this semester join the Green Fund. So on the other side, I am now able to read proposals that students submit, as well as other people of the Tucson community who want annual grants or mini grants. So the mini grants are sort of these smaller grant allocation funds that fund smaller projects and may have smaller impacts, but those add up eventually. And then the annual grants are the bigger ones, and there are many proposals to read, and there's a rubric that we follow. But reading all of these and having my place in the Green Fund helps me be aware of what kind of exciting, sustainable projects are going on at the U of A, and to be more involved with that. And also be more critical, like when I'm reading grants, because I was once the grant writer, now I'm the grant reader, so I in turn can see where students are at, give some feedback, because I'm reading a lot more now. And I feel like my place as I'm the secretary, so I feel like I'm being really helpful to the Green Fund and also to students who want to apply, and I tell them, hey, you should apply for this because this kind of funding for things, the Haury grant does contribute a portion to the Green Fund. specifically for social justice impact projects. So my project kind of fell into that category, and there are many others that I've yet to read that I'm sure will fall into that project, and I'm really excited to work on that this year. So thank you very much.
Hello everyone, so great to hear about your project. In my Office of Recruitment and Engagement for the College of Science, we partner with the Office of Student Engagement, of course. And so many of you know that students work in the community on their own through their leadership groups, student clubs, but we also, of course, have just to bridge the gap a little bit of what 100% engagement is. It's a university initiative to meet the gap between academic preparation and real-world job skills. And so we have courses, of course, that match those professional development skill sets in meaningful ways, and then we also have non-credit opportunities. And so this is a non-credit opportunity that I'm going to discuss. I have a long history of working in the community and in outreach in particular. And so, as you know, most undergraduates are seeking some way to get back to their community, right? And so I was looking for a way to leverage that passion and that time and naivete, no, honestly. So we already have students that are engaged in many science clubs or leadership organizations. And I know that getting into the schools especially can compete with student schedules because most times they're in the class during school classes in our community. So I was looking for a non-formal education setting. So, and an established, trusted community partner, which are our public library system. We all know too how many visited a library recently, despite all the online, right? Still, they're fabulous community centers and typically are located in low-income, ethnic minority communities, right? And we have a huge population of refugees now in Tucson as well. So those are community resource centers well beyond checking out books and using computers. So based on my relationship with the libraries in the past and how many have been to Science City at the Tucson Festival of Books, right? The community is well aware of all the amazing STEM resources within the college and across campus. So we get a lot of requests to go bring STEM content. So the libraries have made multiple requests, and we did have a very successful partnership in one case. So it reminded me that was a great partner. So I reached out to the regional manager and proposed this idea of bringing science students into the libraries. And they loved it because they mentioned they're usually literature majors and would really love to have some kind of STEM training themselves to bring that into those library systems. We also really wanted to target an underserved audience, and the libraries serve underserved audiences. And when I say that, especially when I'm talking about STEM, I mean gender, ethnic minority, income, and an informal setting where many times students at an early age decide if they're math or science students or not because of high performance, high risk situations in school. So in the library, it's a choice. Students actually get to elect what they do. So we have to be really engaging, spark interest, drive curiosity, and appeal to them. And what better way? College students, right? So while we're providing STEM content, we're also doing some college prep work, role models, actual college students that want to spend time with them and are going on to have STEM careers. And most likely are diverse, just like the audience that they're going to be interacting with. So we started with a pilot project, and then through this grant opportunity, we're able to expand it. So I'll just give you some of the nuts and bolts of that. As I mentioned, working with a community partner means they have infrastructure, literally buildings, meeting space. As I mentioned, they're trusted, so the communities that visit the libraries know the staff, trust them. It's a community already. So we're just going to plop right into a well-established relationships. In addition, they're going to have staff support because they want to learn how to do STEM activities alongside our students. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that informal setting actually allows students not to decide if they're math or science or not. It just, is it interesting? Is it fun? And we wanted to do a program that was not just a one-off. How many have been to an event where it's a table and that was the only exposure you got? We wanted something more lasting and a real opportunity for our college students to actually be longer-term role models and mentors to these students that chose to come into the program. So the program was established to be 6 to 8 weeks long, so they would go at least once a week for that period of time. Also, they would have to wear a U of A shirt or their science club shirt to identify themselves, so that, and we would have library staff in the room with them so they could take pictures, right? But also, there's always a code of conduct in any kind of setting like that, and so we wouldn't have to be, the students wouldn't have to be the ones to keep that decorum, but actually just be the fun, engaging ones, right? Also, we wanted to, expose the library staff and the students and their families that came to the programs to STEM content, and where does the social justice and environment come into this? Fundamental science concepts are what we're exploring to have better prepared citizens, and, for them to think on their own and actually explore more at home, hopefully from some extension activities. But we would make sure that the libraries, and we have done this, would have materials and a kit that stays with the library, so that librarians can conduct a science corner or science activities between students coming during program time in the fall or spring semester. So, as I mentioned, this was a 100% engagement initiative, and there are requirements. So the students are actually going to take the lead in forming a community partnership, not just show up and present and leave. They're establishing the relationship, they're communicating, and they're setting up the schedule, etc. So they would take the lead. They were going to be coordinating the actual activities that are provided, meant for general audience, which is no small feat if you've ever had to try to do that, to speak from anyone from 3 years old to 80 years old, right? And you're going to hear from Marley how she mastered that. Staffing it, so although we may have students lead from the clubs, they can use members from their club to come in, so they would staff those events. So maybe they had 3 centers, so they had 8 students there, so they had to staff it and make sure everybody had run through the activity. Provide the equipment and materials, and the libraries provided a petty cash fund, and the students, like the chemistry club, can bring dewars filled with liquid nitrogen, right? So they would share resources to make those really exciting, unique activities. Logistics, right? What time are you coming? Where are you setting up? Where are we storing this? Are we going to go outside? If we're going to make a cloud, etc. As well as I mentioned, communicating back and forth with the library staff and their members, promoting it online, social media, so that, and the libraries themselves promoting it. Evaluation, so they would also document who was there, as well as the overall impact of the activity, and then best practices, how could they adapt it or change it up. And then, of course, they then would recruit amongst their membership for the leads for the following semester. So it's comprehensive. It's a 45-hour minimum commitment. It's student-driven. I serve as their advisor, and their faculty for their club also give them feedback as the program progresses. They also are required to do a reflection, and we basically leave a portfolio with the library if they can use any and all of that along with the kit in the interim. So how do we measure for success? We want to make sure that we're hitting all ages, ethnicities, income levels, and gender. So we capture that in our forms. Our biggest piece was to see if we actually got repeat participation, right? Are the students coming back based on their own free will? And that would tell us that we're really drawing them in and they're actually having a long-term experience with these students. Actual numbers, how many were coming? So, we had everything from 2 students to 50. Depending on the activity and depending on the site. And then personal growth and professional growth amongst the students that are providing the program. And then if we were continuing to be happy, the U of A partnership and the libraries wanted us back. I'm happy to say the libraries definitely wanted us back. We're asking when the next cohort was coming in, and through the grant we were able to expand into 8 libraries now. So for this year, we had 5 student clubs: Society of Earth Science students, Marine Awareness Conservation Society, the Math Department, student members of the American Chemical Society, and OSTEM, which is out. We expanded now and have the Neuroscience, Cognitive Science Ambassadors, Catalyst, Women in Phoenix, and MyoCats. So got a great group of science clubs. Just a couple stats on the pilot program. As Anna mentioned, we already had 11 leads, but we had 26 total that actually went out. That were college students to interact with the students. 332 participants for those 5 libraries over 6 to 8 weeks. We hit all the ethnic groups. We had 36 sessions over 10 weeks and 48 program hours. And then 4 of the student clubs adopted this program in partnership as part of their club charter. So they will continue to do this. And the appeal was they get a lot of requests to put a students, school assemblies and math and science nights, but they wanted this partnership so that they could buy in year after year and have this contribution. Just as a note, all these students agreed to do this on a volunteer basis. They got a notation on their transcript, but for free, 45 hours. A little bit into the program, we received a $3,000 donation from donors in the College of Science, so they were able to receive a $200 stipend just for a surprise, which actually turned out to be $3.50 an hour. So when it came time for me to put in a proposal, I really want to legitimize outreach work. Many people assume that that's just something we do for passion, something we'll do on the side. But until we recognize the impact and the power of having students with younger students modeling what it means to pursue STEM and overcome those difficult subjects and persist, if we don't legitimize that, then we can't expect this to persist and be happening in any kind of significant way. Needless to say, we've expanded into 8 clubs, as I mentioned. We have 16 to 18 student leads this year. We have a lovely stipend of $450 per student, so minimum wage. Thank you very much, Haury. And again, we have a kit with expanded equipment and supplies. And then I'm happy to announce we have so many resources on campus, Biosphere 2, Philandro Science Center, the Mirror Lab. We have bus passes based on the library's suggestion that we provide bus passes for families that are part of the program so that they can have extensions outside the library activity to go to the Mirror Lab, B2. I know the bus doesn't go there, but we have vans through the library system that we can take them. So we'll let the students and the library staff determine that. I'll turn it over to Marley so you can hear what a student's experience is.
Hi everyone, I'm Marley. I am a junior here, undergraduate, and I am studying mathematics with an emphasis in education. A little bit of background from me, just so you can understand where I'm coming from with this. I was born and raised in Tucson. I come from a single-parent home, and my grandparents were actually immigrants, so I'm half Mexican. And for me, I grew up in these low-income schools. I graduated from Alpha High, and my mom, for me, were my passion for education as I planned to be a future teacher. My mom had always told me, anyone can take anything from you in your life, but they can't take away education. So that's something I always has stuck with me, and I've always valued education. And for me, I'm fortunate enough to beat all the odds. I'm a woman coming into studying math and things, and I had a lot of things against me, but a lot of these students don't get to defy these odds, and they go into lifestyles and think mentalities where they're like, oh, math and science isn't for me, like kind of school education isn't for me. And so that's where my want to be a teacher, I want to change these mentalities, and I want to get students interested in mathematics. And when I came to the University of Arizona, I also worked for the College of Science Development Office, and that's where I met Erin. And she ended up reaching out to my boss, and my boss, oh, Marley is math, and she really wants to get involved. And she told me about this project, and right away I was interested. Because for me growing up, I spent all my weekends at libraries. As my mom had worked full time, I was kind of like, oh, my babysitter for the weekend I go, and I love to read books, and I always spend a lot of time there, so that was something I was really excited about. And so when I started in the spring semester, I worked alongside 2 grad students and 1 graduate student, and that was it's a lot interesting experience for me because we weren't a club that was associated. We were just 3 random strangers. We were like, okay, hi. We were all wanting to do this outreach, and for them, the 2 graduate students, it was required for their graduate program, and then the graduate, he's super passionate, interested in this, and I come from just being passionate about education, so we all had different backgrounds and things like that, and we worked at Quincy Douglas Library, and it was right away we lost our library lead, and we had no support from our library, which was disappointing. And we didn't have the proper advertising. We never had a library in our space, a librarian in our space. And so right away we're kind of like, oh no. But within the first week, we had one student. We started with one. Her name was Daniela, and she just drew onto me in class, like just, oh, hey, I love math and everything. And I was like, oh, yay! That's always so excited when you hear kids is so excited about math. And from there, she like brought her friend, and we had these two girls that were at every session, and we actually did 10 sessions. There were 10 weeks we went, and no matter what the circumstances were, those two girls were always there. And for duration, they were the only ones there for most of the time. And it was at a point where we weren't having library staff. We kept trying to reach out, but we failed to reach any connection. And we didn't have that support, and we were thinking, oh, like, let's just cut the program. For us, we'll just stop. But for me, my biggest thing is, as long as you're making a difference in one student's life, that's all that matters to me. Because for those two girls, I realized I did impact their lives, and you see the excitement in their eyes, and they're always willing to try, and like, no matter they have these hard puzzles that were a lot higher than their age group. They're about 6 years old, and they're like, oh, we're expecting like 10 to 12 years old. So it's like these things we're teaching them were really challenging, and they were always persistent and never gave up. And so that's why I decided to come back. And then I also I studied abroad in Mexico this past summer, and I worked in schools and taught mathematics there. And so kind of gave me another excited to use what I learned then and for this upcoming semester. And I'm working at the Woods Memorial Library, and which is really exciting for me because that is the library I went to, and it's in my neighborhood, and it's like, oh, I know everyone, oh, I recognize it, it's like home to me. And so that's really exciting, and I'm really excited to keep continuing this program and hoping to reach out to others to promote it, as I will be graduating soon and can't do it forever.